Hey everyone, so you turn on your forge, or maybe you're running your forge, and all of a sudden your gas burner doesn't sound right. It starts sputtering, or it sounds like the pressure's really low. Basically, it's just not outputting the way that it normally outputs. And it's an awful thing to have happen suddenly, and tends to happen at the worst time ever. I had it happen on mine partway through setting a Damascus billet, and I had to be very, very quick because I have multiple forges, so I have multiple of the same burner. And I chucked some wood chips into my forge so that they would actually catch a light and start burning. And I threw my billet on top of that so it was stuck inside the flames, and hot swapped the burners and was able to keep going and save the billet, which was awesome. However, trying to get the burner fixed again, it was actually, I went through all of the different steps, and it was the very last thing that I checked that was actually the problem. So I thought maybe this would be a great topic for a video if you're stuck in the same situation and your burner starts acting catawampus. I'm going to show you the steps to go through and the things to check in order to get it running again, and so it can keep serving you well. So I'm going to flip the camera around and we'll look at the workbench, and let's pull apart a burner, and I'll show you all the things to check to make sure they're in line for you to get forging again. Okay, so here's what your standard Venturi burner looks like. This is one of the models from Gamerco, and it's very classic. You got your funnel here, or the Venturi here, and you open and close the air gate by screwing this plate back and forward, and that controls how much air goes in and out of the Venturi. You got a ball valve up here. This is where you attach your gas line, and this is what is attached to the burner tube and eventually the flare. So this here is where 99% of the problems that you're going to run into are going to happen. Now, this particular burner has started stuttering and lost all pressure. So they're the symptoms. It just will not, no matter what I crank the forge to, it will not burn the way it ought to burn. It's kind of this soft licking flame that cuts in and out intermittently and sometimes just extinguishes itself. So let's have a look. Now, first thing you want to do is separate the Venturi from the ball valve. And so I'm not that strong, I've just pre-loosened everything. Okay, so now we've got two parts here. This damn fly is intent on being a YouTube star, and it's not happening, mate. Anyway, we have here the Venturi as one piece, and the ball valve as the next piece. Now, the first thing you want to check is your ball valve still functional? Best way to do that is two ways. There's a kind of gross way, and there's a visual way. You can blow in this end and open and close it and see whether or not the air comes out the other side nice and cleanly, or you can actually do a visual inspection, and that requires you to take off this side, like so. You can actually look in there, and is the ball actually moving when I open it? Yes, it is. I can see right through that, so I know that that is clear. Now, to test that it is functioning, because just because you can't see through it doesn't mean that gas can't get through it. So you want to blow in the other side of it. And you should be able to hear it when you open the valve. When you close the valve, you should be able to hear nothing. So if I start blowing on it, let's have a look. So with it open, this trumpet has no tune whatsoever. With closed, I can't get any air through it. So this is not the problem. So I can see through it, and when it's closed, blowing through it gets no air out the other side. So this isn't the problem. We can move into the next section. So now that we know that the ball valve is clear, we can make sure there's no obstructions in any bends. And it's hard to get a good idea of whether or not bends are clear, but all you need is a little torch. If you shine light through one end, you should be able to see it out the other end. That's clear enough for gas, let me tell you. You'll see shadows if there's any sort of blockage there. Very unlikely that you'd get something blocking this up. Doesn't mean it can't happen though. Which takes us to our Venturi. Now the first thing you want to do with a Venturi is look straight down the barrel of it. You see that little speck of light there? Which is particularly pronounced if I use a torch on the other side. Now, if that's blocked, needs to be cleared out. Even if it's partially blocked, you want to see a perfect circle on the other side of that. Nice and round circle on the other side of that. And so that's good. That means that there's no blockage there. So why is this stuttering? If there's no blockage here and the ball valve is working well, why is it stuttering? So the next thing you want to look at is actually the hardware involved in the makeup of the Venturi. This particular shaft that goes all the way down here ends with the nipple, and the nipple is where the actual jet, well, it's sometimes called the jet. The jet is technically the hole in the center of the nipple. But if that way is clear, gas may be escaping through a crack in this. These are usually brass, not steel. But even steel can break. So what you want to do is actually pull this out and do a visual inspection. Now, you sort of pull it out by de-threading all of the different components inside through the air gate here. There's that. We pull that out. And we can unthread this all the way out, because your problem is not likely to lie in the Venturi itself. But these are often cast iron. Not always, they're usually sort of like just a steel, like mild steel. But check this for cracks, because if you've been tightening and untightening this, you may have cracks there. A crack here is unlikely to cause too much of an issue, but you do want to check it while you've got access to it. This is the piece you want to check for cracks. Cracks through here will be quite visible if you're having trouble seeing them because of the soot that has built up. Bit of fine steel wool will clean that up, or a wire wheel. But here you can actually see right down the barrel, nice and clear. There is nothing impeding gas getting through here. So why is it stuttering if we've taken it all the way down here? Well, the reason is our jet, our nipple on the end here. You can see, it's very subtle, it's loose. This thing here is actually threaded itself and seated down inside there. All of this threading needs to be clean on the mating surfaces, and this needs to actually be in there really, really tight. If you're fiddly enough, you can put some Teflon tape in there, but you shouldn't need it, or thread locker down in there. Should just be in there nice and tight. This isn't under enough vibration to really risk loosening, but if you are taking it off and on and things and you're using it for literally years, that sort of thing can happen. Little vibrations just over time. So you want to clean those threads off. Clean the inside of this, making sure not to leave any steel wool residue. And once that's all clean and blown through, you can take this, make sure you don't put any steel fibers in there and that it's still clear. Make sure this is nice and clear, which it is. You can put that back in, tighten it down, and now when gas comes down here and builds up, because quite a bit of pressure builds up in here because that hole is much larger than that hole, and so there's like a backlog of pressure, and that backlog will squirt out the sides here rather than being shot in a jet down your burner tube, and that is what's going to cause your sort of catawampus flame. So once you've got that sorted out, you can then take your Venturi, thread that through, piece everything back together again. Now, thing to remember when you're putting this back together is you don't want gas escaping anywhere until it reaches the jet. And so, if you're putting this back on here, put some Teflon tape in there, and it will protect it from having issues in the future. It also helps keep it on there tighter. You don't need much Teflon tape either. So with Teflon tape, see the threads are heading down and to the left? That means you want to be wrapping in the down direction. Hard to do while running a camera at the same time, because I'm looking in the camera viewfinder instead of looking at what I'm doing. Trying to be a good boy and not cursing while I do this. I hate Teflon tape. It's so handy, but it's such a pain to use. Remember to pull it tight so the threads peek through. Engineers in the audience will be crying right now. Make sure when you use it that none of the thread is going to be blocking, the tape is going to be blocking that jet. Then you can take that, feed it back on. That's there. Same thing goes up here. Get our steel wool. You want to clean all your threads as much as you can. It's just good practice. Bit more Teflon tape. Once again, look at the way the threads are going down and wrap around in that direction. Pulling it tight. Put that in there. Tighten that bad boy on. Now remember, you are working with a flammable gas here, so even though we're using Teflon tape on all the joints and everything, you can't just assume that you've put it back together in a totally leak-free capacity. What you want to do is get a spray bottle. This is a full one, but a spray bottle, and fill it with soapy water. And while the thing is actually pressurized, so ball valve closed, but pressurization coming from the gas bottle to the burner, spray everything down with the soapy water. And if there are any leaks where the gas is coming out because you haven't tightened it up right or put enough Teflon tape on there, you'll actually see it bubbling up as the gas feeds through the soapy water. So always safety first. Do that before you operate the burner with the actual flame going. Now we have a completed burner that is ready to reassemble onto our forge. So hopefully, if you've run into issues where your forge is making weird noises and you're thinking, oh no, I've got to fork out another, whatever amount of money that you spend on these things, I've forgotten. It's been too long since I bought one. But they're not cheap. So if it starts playing up, hopefully this video gets you through fixing it yourself and puts you back forging, which is where you need to be. Anyway, guys, all the links are in the description. Big thanks to everybody who supports the channel on Patreon. You guys rock. I'll catch you all on the next video. Bye.
Well, you're that little piece of me the darkness cannot crush, the flame in the engine room of all we've ever had. It's studying my shadow